Straight question, what did you make of the Kwarteng budget?
Well, I think what it did was it just sort of cleared the decks, I think, of all of those sort of irritating taxes a lot of Conservatives over the last 15 or so years have not liked, but at the wrong time in the wrong way, and into markets which were fragile and jittery. And so it has been a colossal disaster. There was no explanation or philosophical justification made in advance. He'd sacked the permanent secretary of the Treasury. So it looked like ill-judged arrogance, and I'm afraid the judgment of people is going to be very, very harsh. And the issue we'll come to in a minute, I think, is that judgment just going to evaporate over time, or is it now so deeply entrenched in their thinking that there's no way back for the government?
We will indeed come to precisely that in just a moment, but just two further steps to get to that point, as it were. The city is a world that you know in your business life as well as in your political life. Do you think that there is any way in which the city can be squared? Because the bottom line is they will lend almost any amount of money if the price is right, and that means interest rates go up. And if we can do that and find a way of doing it, can they be squared and come on side and become supportive?
No, I don't think so. They will act within the markets they operate in rationally. And the inevitable consequence of what happened last week is that people are going to pay more because interest rates are going to go up, the pound is under strain. And what this has done, what this budget, if you call it that, has done, is to magnify the market and price pressure, which was already there. I mean, the markets were very, very fragile. They were very, very sort of awkwardly placed. And this has stressed, if you like, and this has played into that mood and exaggerated everything. So there is no way, for instance, if you use the word squared to mean that whereas the pound might have settled back, mortgage interest rates will not. And again, we'll come to the politics in a minute, but I think this is so difficult and dangerous now for the government that people have it in their head, and it's not going to go away, that the government will be to blame for their economic pain. You can't blame it on Putin anymore, is what they will think. And that, I think, means that the government is going to be in a very, very difficult position.
On the turbulence, then, Liz Truss, as I've just said to Lettuce, throughout her leadership election said this is exactly what she was going to do, and she's done it. I mean, in that sense, why the political turbulence? You must have seen it coming.
Well, first of all, I think that the nature of journalism during the leadership election was very shallow. It didn't adequately probe leadership candidates on anything very much. It just tried to trip them up on whether they were going to reverse the national insurance decrease or not. So what you have is not really a properly rolled philosophy. I mean, what you've got is a government not understanding that if you have an ideological point of view, you can only implant it at a time that is ready and happy to receive it. So what they've done is they've just dumped this ideological thinking, much of which is perfectly valid in the long term. And we were hearing it articulated a moment ago, perfectly good thinking, I share it. But the judgment of doing it at a time where we've had COVID, we've got a Ukraine war, all of the inflationary pressures across the world are difficult. We've already got very high borrowing. Suddenly, to increase borrowing by many tens of billions has dramatically spooked the markets. Now, there's no turning back on that. As I said, people, whereas they might have said, OK, Putin has screwed up our life, are now going to blame the government entirely for the mortgages they either cannot get or cannot pay.